These are the secret suspensions that professional golf never wanted you to know about. Dustin Johnson, one of the most talented golfers of his generation, a two-time major champion and former world number one, was allegedly suspended multiple times by the PGA Tour for failed drug tests, and the tour went to extraordinary lengths to make sure the public never found out. This story isn't just about one player's personal demons. It's about a system designed from the ground up to protect its image at all costs. A system where the commissioner could bury positive drug tests, where suspensions could be disguised as voluntary leaves of absence, and where the biggest names in the sport operated under a completely different set of rules than the rest of the sporting world. Let's start with what we know for certain. On July 31, 2014, Dustin Johnson was riding one of the best seasons of his career. He had a tour victory that year, a pair of runner-up finishes, over $4.2 million in earnings, and he was sitting fourth in FedEx Cup points and fifth in the Ryder Cup standings. He was virtually guaranteed to represent the United States at that year's Ryder Cup, and then, out of nowhere, he announced he was taking a voluntary leave of absence, effective immediately, citing personal challenges. The next day, Golf.com dropped a bombshell. According to their sources, Johnson hadn't voluntarily walked away from anything. He had been suspended for 6 months by the PGA Tour after testing positive for cocaine. And it wasn't the first time. The report claimed that Johnson had failed 3 separate drug tests, one for marijuana in 2009, one for cocaine in 2012, and another for cocaine earlier in 2014. The PGA Tour's response was immediate and carefully worded. Executive Vice President Ty Votaw issued a statement clarifying that Johnson had taken a voluntary leave of absence and was not under a suspension from the PGA Tour. That language matters, because under the PGA Tour's own guidelines, the Tour wasn't required to announce any disciplinary actions against players who tested positive for recreational drugs. The commissioner had sole discretion. If there was no public punishment, there was no public announcement. And if there was no announcement, well, nothing ever happened. Now let's rewind to 2012, because that's where this story gets truly fascinating. In March of that year, Johnson played the Cadillac Championship at Doral. Then, he simply vanished. He didn't compete for 11 weeks, finally returning at the Memorial Tournament in late May. His explanation at the time? He hurt his back lifting a jet ski. His agent, David Winkle, backed the story completely. He told CBS Sports, "Dustin is not serving a drug suspension. I will make it clear. He has been injured. He is playing golf again. He is very rusty but champing at the bit to get back out there." According to Golf.com sources, that was a lie. Johnson was suspended for the 2012 cocaine test, and the PGA Tour chose not to make it public. Think about what that means. A top professional athlete was supposedly suspended for cocaine use, and everyone involved, the tour, the player, and his management, collectively decided to tell the world it was a jet ski injury. And it worked. Nobody questioned it for 2 years. When the 2014 story broke, the fallout was swift. Johnson was removed from the Ryder Cup standings overnight. He missed the PGA Championship. He missed the FedEx Cup playoffs. His season was over. But the PGA Tour maintained its position. This was voluntary. Nobody was suspended. Johnson eventually returned to competition in early 2015 and sat down for interviews that only deepened the contradictions. He told ESPN's Tom Rinaldi that he had never failed a drug test on the PGA Tour. "Like everyone, I'm tested regularly by the Tour, and as far as that's concerned, I haven't failed anything." He acknowledged issues with alcohol, admitting he would drink vodka to excess, but when asked specifically about cocaine, he said, "I did not have a problem. It's just something I'm not going to get into. I have issues, but that's not the issue. During his time away, Johnson leaned on an unlikely mentor, Wayne Gretzky, the hockey legend and father of his fiancée, Paulina. Johnson said he played golf 6 times a week with Gretzky and even broke the Sherwood Country Club course record with a 61. He put down a $1,000 bet with Gretzky and other club members to see who could go through January without drinking. And here's the remarkable part of this story. Johnson came back and became even better. In 2016, he won the U.S. Open at Oakmont. In 2020, he won the Masters with a record-setting 20 under par performance, the first man in Masters history to reach that number. He accumulated 24 PGA Tour victories, 6 World Golf Championship titles, second only to Tiger Woods, and spent 135 weeks ranked #1 in the world. Only Greg Norman and Tiger Woods have spent more time at the top. But the larger issue never went away. The PGA Tour's drug testing policy, which began in July 2008, was fundamentally broken from a transparency standpoint. Commissioner Fincham himself acknowledged this tension in 2009 when he said, "We may have had some test results that trouble us in other areas that we treat in a different bucket, but we don't publicize those." Critics raised a devastating question. If the commissioner is both the policeman and the promoter, which role comes first when a star player tests positive? Rory McIlroy put it bluntly at the 2016 Open, saying he could use human growth hormone and get away with it because of the tour's lax procedures. When other players were suspended, the contrast was stark. John Daly actually called the Associated Press himself to announce his own suspension because, in his words, he'd rather be honest with the fans. Robert Garrigus was publicly suspended for 3 months for marijuana. Matt Every was suspended for cannabis. But Dustin Johnson, one of the biggest names in the sport, allegedly walked away 3 times without a single public consequence. It wasn't until 2017, when Jay Monahan replaced Fincham as commissioner, that the policy was reformed. Under the new rules, suspensions for recreational drug violations would be publicly announced, though Monahan still retained discretion depending on circumstances and severity. By 2022, Johnson had moved on entirely. He resigned from the PGA Tour and joined LIV Golf, signing a 4-year contract reportedly worth $125 million. He earned $18 million for winning the 2022 LIV Golf Individual Championship, making more money from 6 LIV events than in any full season during his 15 years on the PGA Tour. His total career earnings now exceed $150 million. But there's an irony to how this story ends. Johnson signed a multi-year extension with LIV Golf in January 2026, but the league's future is uncertain, with reported losses in the hundreds of millions each year and speculation that Saudi Arabia's public investment fund might pull its funding. Johnson has fallen to 636th in the world rankings because LIV events don't count. He's not eligible for the PGA Tour's returning members program because his last major win was in 2020, outside the qualifying window. And while he's publicly expressed a desire to play in the 2027 Ryder Cup, that path grows narrower by the day. Dustin Johnson remains one of the most gifted ball strikers the game has ever produced. But his story is also a cautionary tale about what happens when a sports organization decides that protecting its brand matters more than protecting the truth. The PGA Tour built a system where suspensions could be hidden, where failed drug tests could be explained away as jet ski injuries, and where the public was told a carefully constructed version of events that may have had very little to do with reality. The policy has since changed, but the questions about what else might have been buried under that old system, those questions will never fully go away.